Going to take you now to Cloncurry in Queensland. This is where the Prime Minister Scott Morrison has just held his first full news conference since his re-election. Let's listen in.
Well, it's great to be here with the Deputy PM, Michael McCormack, and it's great to be out here in Burke and Wills. It was tremendous to be in Cloncurry last night, where I was able to meet with the North Queensland Livestock Industry Recovery Agency and to authority, and to be able to speak with a lot of locals. And here today at the camp draft, it's a great opportunity to hear back from people and how everything's going. And we're out at Gypsy Plains this morning with Jacqueline, who I introduced to people at the campaign launch a little while ago, and just see the transformation in the time since the dreadful floods. And a key reason for coming here today with Michael is to just remind the country that there's still a lot of work to do here. There's still a long road ahead, and we've had the election, and that's had a lot of focus and attention, and rightly so. And we are very grateful for the tremendous support that both Michael and I and our parties have received from the Australian people to get on with the job. And getting on with the job means getting here. This is a job that needs to get done, and the authority is doing a terrific job in rolling out what is now will be $300 million worth of grants, which will be there for rebuilding, restocking, replanting, enabling people to move on and get back up on their feet. It's being supported well by organisations like QRider and others, where we're working in lockstep to make sure that we really just do rebuild this incredibly important industry and way of life up here in North Queensland. This is what we're elected to do, is just to get back to work and get on with it. And I want to thank particularly Shane Stone and all of his team and all the board members, and for just the community, though, for the way that they have responded and they've got around each other, for their optimism and for their resilience and their determination. When you come here, you can only just be filled with pride and admiration for these wonderful Australians. This is such an important way of life in Australia, and we're going to make sure that continues. So we'll get around a bit more today, and we'll get a bit more feedback. The program that we set up here with the authority is to be listening all the time, to be responsive. Shane and his team spend an enormous amount of time on the road, getting around and listening to people and making sure that our programs are hitting the mark. And so far, I think, Michael, that's the feedback we're getting, that it is hitting the mark. And at a time when people really needed the government to be here, we have been here. And being here has been a great encouragement to people, and it's enabled them to get on with the work that they've been doing. I mean, last time I was here, there were carcasses on the ground. The smell was overwhelming. Those carcasses have now been disposed of. That was a brutally hard job, and now we're going to the rebuilding phase, and so we'll be there for that. So that's why we're here, to listen and to monitor progress, and we're here because we're back at work.
Prime Minister, reports this morning that 3 orphaned Islamic State children will soon return to Australia. Can you give us an insight into what involvement the Australian government has had in that process, and what condition these children can expect when they do return home?
Well, no, I'm not going to go into a commentary on what are very sensitive matters. I mean, these are issues that really do fall under the banner of national security and how they're handled, and I don't want to put at risk or compromise the safety of anyone. I certainly won't be doing that in relation to any Australian officials or others who are engaged in these issues. It's a very sensitive matter, and we'll continue to manage it very carefully, and it's important that we don't compromise anything.
And Prime Minister, what's your message to the Queensland state government on the Adani mine at the minute?
Get on with it. I mean, regardless of who's proposing a mine or what the mine is, it just should comply with the relevant regulation and legislation like any other project, and people should have the certainty about those processes being followed and them not being delayed. And so that's what should happen. They have a decision to make. They're the authority on these questions, and they should make those decisions. I was talking to Prime Minister Modi last night and to congratulate him on his election win, and he was kindly returning the favour. And India is going to be an incredibly important investment partner for Australia, and it's a two-way street. And India will be an enormously big trading partner for Australia in the future. And what does concern me has been the commentary, particularly that came from the Labor Party on this, about the concerns that it was an Indian company. I mean, what on earth has that got to do with it? They're a company that's investing in creating jobs and they should be subject to the same rules and everybody else and treated with the same respect as anyone else.
And we hear this morning that Anthony Albanese wants to split up the tax cuts that the coalition's offering, and they'll agree to the first tranche but block the second. What's your response to that?
Labor haven't learned the lessons of last Saturday. I mean, Bill Shorten did exactly the same thing. This is just Bill Shorten in a different shirt. I mean, did he not get the message from the Australians that they want a government that backs aspiration and legislation that backs aspiration? Our tax relief we took to the Australian people, and it sets out a plan over the next 7 years. And that's what Australians voted for on the weekend. It seems that Anthony Albanese is no different to Bill Shorten.
And just finally on a local question, if I may, we heard from farmers this morning and last night that they've just suffered through floods and now they're facing the prospect of returning to drought by year's end. When will your government introduce a comprehensive drought policy? And will you keep on a drought envoy, and do you envisage that being Barnaby Joyce?
Well, matters regarding personnel I'll be dealing with later. But we have a comprehensive drought policy. We had the Comprehensive Drought Summit. We have over $6 billion that has been committed to actually dealing with the drought. We have a drought fund that we tried to get through the Parliament, and the Labor Party opposed it. So the only party in this country that doesn't have a drought policy is the Labor Party, and I could add a few more actually, and the Greens and a few more. But we have a drought policy, and we have been managing that policy both from Michael and I as Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister level, and right across our ministry, because it affects so many different portfolios. So we'll continue on with that, and it's great to be here. Cheers.